The Sutra of Karma, the law of the wave. We create waves ourselves and use them to influence the world around us. We are constantly affected not only by the waves created by others but also by those we initiate ourselves. Let's try, while in the water, to make the water level around our body rise. We scoop water toward ourselves with our hands, and for just a moment, there is more water, but it immediately flows back. However, the very attempt to bring the water closer creates a wave. And we simultaneously become both the origin and the crest of the wave, which first rises, then disperses and recedes. It may seem that the space around is infinite and the wave has gone forever, but in reality, there are boundaries. The wave may hit the walls of an invisible perimeter, or more likely, encounter many obstacles at different distances and eventually return. In essence, the world is an ocean in constant motion, redistributing resources, money, and emotions. Like a stone thrown into water, a thought creates ripples and waves that spread across the great ocean of consciousness. The source of the wave can be any intention we send out: thought, intention, or action. The rules governing the spread and interference, of such waves are likely similar to those well studied in physics for processes like light, heat, sound, and electrical vibration. In quantum physics, the concept of a wave function is used to describe particle interactions. In the physical world, a wave is a way for energy to move through space. In the human world, each of us, like a particle, is a source generating waves of emotions, feelings, and ideas. The activity of our brain is closely tied to generating a large number of electrical impulses that arise in hundreds and thousands of individual neurons. In physiology, this is called the total electrical activity of a certain area of the brain. After the work of L. Galvani, who first identified the presence of animal electricity in a frog in experiments from 1791–1794, the study of electrical activity became one of the main methods for researching the nervous system of humans and animals. Today, with the help of an electroencephalogram, EEG, we can register electrical waves of different frequencies and amplitudes depending on the functional states of the body. When eyes are closed, while awake, an alpha rhythm is recorded, especially clearly in the occipital region, with a frequency of 813 Hz and an amplitude of about 50 V. A stimulus, such as a sound, or the transition to some activity with open eyes leads to a switch from the alpha rhythm to the beta rhythm, which has a higher frequency, 1430 Hz, and an amplitude of 25 V. This is called EEG desynchronization. The transition from wakefulness to sleep is accompanied by the emergence of a theta rhythm, frequency 47 Hz. During deep sleep, a delta rhythm with a frequency of 0.53.5 Hz is recorded. The amplitude of these slow waves is 100–300 V. Thus, depending on its internal state, the human brain generates and emits electrical waves of varying frequencies that interact with the waves of other living beings. Our emotions, states, reactions, and moods are reflected, mirrored, in the brains of those around us through specific neurons. Mirror neurons, which are responsible for empathy and the ability to understand the emotions of others, were discovered 20 years ago by neurophysiologists Giacomo Rizzolatti, Luciano Fedega, Vittorio Galeazzi, and Leonardo Fogassi at the University of Parma. In this world, what makes us rich is not what we receive but what we give. In the first publications about mirror neurons, the focus was only on movements and intentions. But soon, researchers realized that they could also reconstruct the feelings of others, such as joy or pain. The culprit is those same mirror neurons, the brain cells that give us the ability to empathize. Disruption of the mirror neuron system leads to the development of certain mental disorders, such as autism, where a person suffers from social dysfunction and communication problems. Researchers have also proven that our neurons successfully mirror only those emotions and gestures that seem familiar and understandable to us, so the expression on the same wavelength is valid even from a neurophysiological perspective. When we create an energy wave, we can form its charge, but once a wave is set in motion, we cannot change it. Interestingly, confirmation of this property of the initial impulse can be found in religious texts and beliefs of various faiths. For example, the image of waves is mentioned in ancient Indian treatises. The entire world is a restless ocean, and the human soul is also restless and full of turmoil. There are external waves that influence us, and there are waves within us that can affect the surrounding world. The first are beyond our control, and Buddhism advises avoiding and ignoring them through various meditative techniques. But internal waves are entirely within our power, and a wise man, especially a saint, knows how to control them. In Islam, waves that change the world are intentions, niyya. They form the foundation for deeds. Indeed, actions are judged by intentions, and indeed, every person will get what they intended. Around intentions, a set of impulses is formed, shaping human aspirations and later influencing actions. The Quran says, "There is no blame upon you for what you do by mistake but only for what your hearts intended." Quran 33:5. In other words, the source of sin is not the action but the intention behind it. A wrongful deed done unintentionally absolves a person from responsibility, according to Islam. What goes around, comes around. Do not do to others what you do not wish for yourself. Confucius. The Christian ascetic Seraphim of Saraf said, "Acquire a peaceful spirit, and thousands around you will be saved." This maxim, transforming the world around oneself, is one of the key principles of Christian ethics. Christ himself called his followers to change the world through enlightening words and example. "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations," Matthew 28:19, so that this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, Matthew 24:14. The world awaits this wave of change, for the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God, Romans 8:22. The ideal model is to spread the wave of grace from God to the entire surrounding world. In religious ethical teachings of the East, the transformative power of mental energy is reflected in the idea of avoiding negative judgments and emotions. Waves of negativity create a lasting negative field around a person, forming a negative aura that, according to the law of attraction, will attract more negativity. In the Jewish tradition, the wave effect, represented as the law of retribution, is articulated both in practical and ethical terms. In the Old Testament, this is the principle of retribution, or talion, an eye for an eye. Exodus 21:23-27, Leviticus 24:20. However, in the Torah, this principle is applied only in cases of murder. Do not accept a ransom for the life of a murderer, who deserves to die. He must surely be put to death. Numbers 35:31. Evil, like a wave, strikes the shore and returns. Henryk Sienkiewicz. Jewish sages formulate the fundamental rule of societal existence through the lens of the law of return. When a man came to Hillel, Hillel converted him, saying, "Do not do to your neighbor what is hateful to you." That is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Now go and study. In ancient philosophy, Plato referenced the transformative power of thought in his theory of ideas, in the famous myth of the cave. People are prisoners of their perceptions, based on sensations, and the real world is understood only through the power of thought. Stoics taught to avoid negative passions and judgments to achieve ataraxia, inner calm, and even apathy, the maximum avoidance of passions. No wonder rulers like Marcus Aurelius emerged from the Stoics. By mastering the art of concentration, people with high energy status attract thousands of followers into their orbit. One such passionate figure was Girolamo Savonarola. His preaching sent powerful waves of thought that moved the masses, even drawing the attention of Pope Alexander VI, who excommunicated him for suspicion of heresy. Waves also apply to the laws of economics. According to economic theory, the economic cycle consists of 4 phases: growth, stagnation, decline, recession, and depression, crisis, with the rise and fall happening in waves. Theories of economic waves or cycles explain why crises don't lead to total economic ruin but are followed by periods of recovery. What goes around comes around. What we choose is always good, but nothing can be good for us without being good for all. Jean-Paul Sartre. The source of a wave's power is the thought that makes us the center, attracting corresponding mental waves from others, like attracts like. It may seem like magic, but it's just a natural law. Incidentally, in occultism, forming a mystical request is impossible without practicing wave creation. This is the purpose behind dervish dances, proper prayer practices, and shamanic techniques of ecstasy. The entire secret of magic lies in controlling the inner state, which can be directed towards creating a wave. Here's how English occultist Aleister Crowley describes it: if a magician proclaims the divinity of his ideas persistently enough, they will ignite within and around him, and animate the talismans. Thus, a living vibration with high potential will arise in a certain group of sympathetic substances and forces spreading in all directions, expanding and weakening like ripples from a stone thrown into water until the agitation subsides. Just as a fanatical idea from a handful of people can inflame the minds of their neighbors and gradually infect an entire country, the magician's actions cause agitation as they disrupt the balance of forces. He transmits his personal vibration, just like a radio transmitter sends its wave, and the receiver tuned to his frequency will inevitably pick up the signal. The projection theory, or perspective, developed by psychologists Coralie Chevalier, Nicholas Baumard, and Julie Grizes, also suggests that each person projects their behavior, emotions, and feelings in direct relation to the reactions and actions of others. Our collective mental synchronization determines the nature of the mental waves we receive from others, as well as the thoughts we send out. According to Nicholas Christakis, head of the Human Nature Lab at Harvard Medical School, the key factor determining our health is the health of those around us. Any distortions in the transmission of information within the informational systems we are part of inevitably affect our health. Typically, this manifests as excess or insufficient weight, high or low blood pressure, ulcers, joint and thyroid problems, premature aging, disruptions in the male or female reproductive systems, hormonal dysregulation, overall immune issues, and, of course, anxiety and depression. Do not be deceived, God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. Galatians 6:7-8. You reap what you sow. Let's take anger as an example. In this state, a person's face and actions reflect readiness for aggression. When another person witnesses this, they begin to experience a corresponding range of negative emotions, such as fear, retaliatory aggression, and rage, leading to an increase in blood pressure and risk of heart attack or stroke. Therefore, avoiding negative emotions and producing positive ones is the law of successful survival in society. Everything that happens to us is the result of our attunement to a certain wave and the expectations we form in this flow. Soviet psychologist Dmitry Kuznets, who discovered the phenomenon of a subject's readiness to perceive future events and act based on previous experiences, also spoke of this. Numerous experiments have shown that identical objects are perceived differently because a person anticipates their difference due to prior experience. For example, in Kuznets' studies, a smaller ball was placed in the subject's left hand and a larger one in the right. The setup involved 10 to 15 such trials. Afterward, the subject was given balls of the same size and asked to compare them, yet they remained convinced that one was heavier. Thus, perception and analysis of information always occur through the prism of this set, selectively filling a person's worldview with the emotions and information they are predisposed to. Spreading negative waves in the modern world, with all its messengers and Twitter feeds, is a risky endeavor. You can set off the most immoral process and even gain immediate benefit or fame, but understand that the wave of words leave and never return won't listen. It will circle the earth 3 times and spit back in your face. And with the advent of new communication tools, it will reach its originator even faster. This is precisely what American philosopher and sociologist Alvin Toffler wrote about in his book The Third Wave. The waves described by Toffler are quantum states, energetic levels, with each dimension of reality being higher than the previous one. Each wave moves 10 times faster than the one before, and each new wave is more total, affecting a larger number of people and transforming the concept of human nature and society. And just as you want men to do to you, you also do to them likewise. Luke 6:31. What you sow, you shall reap. The effect of the wave law has no expiration date. An example of this is the life stories of many great people who gained deserved fame only after their death. For instance, Nico Pirosmani began painting his works on whatever was always at hand, simple oilcloth taken from tables. People mocked him, considering him half crazy. For most of his life, he lived in utter poverty, charging mere pennies for his works and often sleeping in basements. Fame came to Pirosmani only after his death. Today, Nico Pirosmani is not only a symbol of folk art but of Georgia itself. The world is a closed system. The law of cause and effect operates everywhere, and always such reflections are immensely helpful for life, both for the individual and for society as a whole. Under this law, every person is truly the master of their fate, rewarding or punishing themselves. This law states that all thoughts, words, and actions reflect in a person's future, not as rewards or punishments in the common sense, but as inevitable results following their cause. For example, this law manifests in South Korea, a rapidly progressing country where Protestantism was recently added to the Confucian worldview deeply ingrained in people's minds. During the flu epidemic, citizens voluntarily and at their own expense bought protective masks at pharmacies and distributed them at bus stops and at the entrances to their offices. Moreover, those who were sick or thought they were already infected put on masks first. Do you know how they reason? We'd be ashamed if our colleagues got sick, and our company or country suffered because of it. Such attitudes from individuals merge into a powerful wave of public responsibility, giving everyone a sense of protection and confidence. Do not do to your neighbor what is hateful to you. This is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn. Hillel the Elder. You reap what you sow. The effect of the wave law has no expiration date. A prime example is the life stories of many great people who received deserved fame, even if it came after their death. For instance, Nico Pirosmani began painting his works on the only material always at hand, simple oilcloth taken from tables. People mocked him, considering him half mad. For most of his life, he lived in poverty, accepting mere pennies for his work and sleeping in basements. Fame came to Pirosmani only after his death. Today, Nico Pirosmani is a symbol not only of folk art but also of Georgia itself. The world is a closed system. The law of cause and effect operates everywhere, and always such reflections greatly help in life, both for individuals and society as a whole. Under this law, every person is truly the master of their fate, rewarding or punishing themselves. This law states that all thoughts, words, and actions reflect on a person's future, not as a reward or punishment, as is often thought, but as an inevitable result following its cause. For example, this law is evident in South Korea, a rapidly advancing country where Protestantism has recently layered onto the Confucian worldview that has historically shaped people's minds. During a flu epidemic, citizens voluntarily buy protective masks from pharmacies at their own expense and distribute them at bus stops and office entrances. Moreover, the first to wear masks are those who are sick or believe they might be infected. And do you know how they reason? We would be ashamed if our colleagues got sick and were bedridden, and our company and country suffered as a result. This individual attitude merges into a powerful wave of public responsibility, providing each person with a sense of protection and confidence. Do not do to your neighbor what is hateful to you, this is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary, now go and learn. Hillel the Elder. What goes around comes around. The waves that change our lives begin within us in our emotions, thoughts, and aspirations. It is within each person's power to become the source of a wave that brings positive energy into the world, which will inevitably return to us.